Sarah, please go ahead.
Thank you, Donna. Hi, Tom. Thanks for taking my question.
Hi, Sarah.
I wanted to ask a question about creating new souls again.
About what, Sarah?
Making new souls, when you say like an average soul is copy pasted to make a new one. So, and you always say that if the LCS copy paste an evolved soul, that would be cheating. So I don't get why that would be cheating. I mean, an average soul has also evolved a little bit. How come that wouldn't be cheating? If they just won't suffer, right? If it's the same thing, they have evolved, why is that cheating?
Well, the idea is that we evolve by making choices, right? And through those choices, we either move toward love or move more toward fear. And if we just started at the top and say, all right, everybody's already all grown up, you know, as much as the larger system is. The system just duplicates itself. And now you have a whole bunch of systems, you have a whole bunch of IUCs just like the system. And they're all at the same level that the system is. So what has it gained over just being a monolithic thing? It hasn't really gained anything. It's just cut itself into a bunch of identical pieces. You don't have, you don't really have a situation in which growth is possible so much. You're still stuck at wherever it is you are. The point is, you want to let the free will pieces interact with each other naturally to where they help each other grow up. They stimulate each other. They come together with different ideas and different approaches. So you want them to be different, not to be all the same. You want diversity amongst the IUOCs. And we have a lot of diversity amongst the IUOCs. So when the system wants to make another IUOC, it makes one that fits in somewhere in the middle. It's just where it starts. That way, it has its highest opportunity to interact effectively with the others and grow from that. So it's not so much the end point of where we're going to, it's the journey. It's the journey along the way to get to that end point is where all the growth and learning comes in. It's through that process of making those choices and making the choices toward love rather than fear. That's what changes us. That's what allows us to grow up. So that's the idea. And if you had someone that had a much lower entropy or a much higher entropy than the average, then they would be disadvantaged in their choice making. Either way, they would be disadvantaged in their choice making. So it's by the process of being challenged and making the good choices that we actually evolve the quality of the consciousness system.
Okay, so average souls come with diversity, or
Yeah.
it's diverse?
No, it's still diverse. When I say average, it's not identical to anybody. It's diverse in its own characteristics. But as far as its quality goes, it's about average.
Yeah.
So it can understand and feel like it is connected to the people around it. It's not a fish out of water. It's a fish in water, not only in water, but in water with other fish of its own kind. You know, it can make connections with other people. That's where most of the learning comes from.
Thanks, Tom.
That just gives it a chance to evolve or de-evolve on its own. If you started it higher than what it actually had earned, then it would probably be mostly de-evolving for a while. If you started it lower than what it actually learned, it'd probably evolve quickly. You have to earn. You know, you start someplace and then you earn from there on. But you have to earn it wherever you start. I was just talking about the start. So it just starts a new IUOC somewhere in the middle as far as its quality goes. And from then on, it has to earn its place. by evolving or de-evolving based on its choices. Yeah, I kind of feel, Sarah, like I didn't really answer your question too well, but well, about as good as I can do, though.
Thanks. No, it was good. Thanks.
Mihaela, please go ahead.
Just wondering, I mean, I read in several books things like, you know, we are in soul groups, something like that, like we are family souls, something similar, meaning that we've incarnated several times here on Earth together to help each other. I was just thinking if this is true, or does it mean that us as souls, we are waiting for each other? Because you're just saying, there was another question saying that his father just passed away, and maybe soon enough he will be another character and so on. Is it possible that actually his father is waiting for, I don't know, mother or something, or for us to play different roles all together?
Yeah, that does happen in the margins. It's not typical. It's not even a large minority. That happens somewhat. And when it does happen, it only happens in maybe 2s or 3s. It doesn't happen in whole groups. It's not like 5s and 10s, you know, people, it's too complicated. It's too difficult to make all that happen. You know, that's the waiting, the connecting in time, all of that is just very problematical, and it doesn't give that much back. It's not that it's that much more viable to somebody's growth to go through all that. So typically it would be maybe 2, at most 3, that plan some sort of connection. And typically that connection is not planned so much for the timing as just for the interaction. So if you have somebody that really seems to pull learning out of you, you know, you just work good together, and all right, so now they are 30 years old and you just got run over by a truck. So you could come back maybe as one of their children, perhaps, or maybe somebody that lives next door, you know, a neighbor, or perhaps a cousin, or some other person. You can maybe come back and fit in some other, you know, category to that person. But to say, oh, well, we need to both be born at the same time, at the same place, you know, on the same day, but the same parents. Well, okay, every once in a while, maybe 1 in 10 million or something, you know, something like that, you can do that. But basically, the more you try to put constraints on it, the more difficult it gets to do. And the reason why it generally doesn't work is that we all have free will. This is not, you know, we don't really have a plan for everything we're going to become and how we're going to become it and where we're going to live. So what happens if a whole bunch of people are all born in the same town, you know, within the same 10 years? Well, 10 years later, they're liable to live all over the country, if not all over the world. You know, they go wherever their parents go, you know, and the parents aren't part of this game, you know, so they're off and they're moving, they take a job someplace else. It's so hard to manipulate things around, you know, to overcome the choices of free will, that to keep a large group together is just about impossible. Free will just tears it apart because people just make choices. They decide to move, they go someplace else. They, you know, they were going to be your husband, and oh no, they got married, you know, a year before they met you. Oh, well, it didn't work out. It's a free will. So it's just, it doesn't work very well because of free will. Now, if you had something like predestination, that would work, but then that would be impossible because there would be no way that you could make groups because everything's predestined. The story's already written. It's done. You can't go back and rewrite in a group. You see, so nothing really supports that very well. But yes, if you really, let's say, had a really, hard problem with your mother, you and your mother just fought all the time, and that relationship was just poisonous, you may want to come back as you're the mother and your mother is your daughter. So now the relationship's reversed, and you can perhaps learn something from that relationship, particularly if there's a closeness there that you can see it from both ways. Or better yet, you could incarnate twice, and you could be both the mother and the daughter, both from your IUOC. Your IOC could spin off 2 free will awareness units, one being the mother, one being the mother's daughter. And now it's easy to see both sides at once. You can kind of tell what they're thinking, and they can tell what you're thinking. And that might solve that problem that you had from that poisonous relationship. You see, so things like that can happen in the margins if they are helpful to somebody's growth. But remember, this is all about your growth. It's all about growing up and becoming love, not about having a good time or that sort of thing. So it's not a social event. It's all about growing up and becoming love. So if there are things that you can manage, like being both the mother and the daughter out of the same IUOC, just because it's going to help you grow up, then that sort of thing's supported. But just, oh, I want to hang out with my friends, and it doesn't really have a big effect on your growth, then unless it's very easy to do, the system's not going to support it. And it's not very easy to do. So that's basically the way that works. So no, that doesn't happen often. And most of the things you read about how, well, everybody's in a soul group and we do this, most of that is just kind of people wishing that it was that way and kind of making that up because it feels good. And it's just another way of, looking at the problem, but it's not really functional. It doesn't really work very well that way. It's maybe nice to think about, but it isn't a very functional process. So anything that's not really functional doesn't happen very often. It's pretty rare.
Joshua, please go ahead.
So I attended one of the immersives, and since then I've had a number of occasions where, Tom, you've shown up in my dreams, whether I've been lucid or just a regular dream, and just pick up a bit of knowledge periodically from you whenever I have those events. In one case, I went lucid and you told me quite a bit of things about getting out of body. I furiously scribbled on notes. Unfortunately, I was not lucid enough to realize that I was actually writing within my dream, so it didn't make any difference. And the last thing that I got was one particular technique that you said where you told me to look at the edge of a mirror when I am going to try to do an astral projection. And well, I tried that for a couple of weeks and just like visualizing myself in a mirror, and it just wasn't working. But then just as I'd given up, you showed up again in another one of my dreams. And just as I left that dream, I walked in front of a mirror that I'd seen in my childhood home many, many times before in my dreams. And it suddenly occurred to me, what if I tried that? So I did try that. And I very, very quickly had an astral projection the very next night. And I've successfully used that technique a few times now. In fact, just this morning, where I tried to visit the park. So my question kind of is maybe a little bit twofold. One, is that a technique that you've used or taught in the past? And two, how do I know when you show up in dreams, if that's really you or my imagination or the LCS or what's going on there? I'm an engineer by trade, so I guess I'm trying to do a little error correction. Did I really get Tom's IP address, so to speak?
Yeah. So tell me more about this mirror. And you saw a mirror that you recognized from childhood. Now, how do you use that? Do you go to that childhood mirror and use that?
Well, I tried a mirror in real life, a physical mirror, and that didn't work. But it was only, so I've been in front of, I usually check myself in mirrors. It's kind of a dream thing that what makes me aware that I'm lucid. I'll look and I'll say, oh, wait a second, I look somewhat different in here. I have three eyes, something's going on. I have whatever's happening in there. That time, though, I just walked to the mirror, and instead of becoming lucid, I immediately woke up. But it was just like right after I had the conversation with you. And it had absolutely nothing to do with the mirror. You literally told me right before that, you said, I'll meet you over there. And the whole scenery was dark, but there was this one particular place that was glowing. And I swear it looked kind of like a park. So that decided actually this morning that I was going to try to go there. And I don't know if I actually made it to the park or not. But yeah, so the mirror was just something that periodically I see, and whenever I'm going lucid, and somehow this seems to work whenever I'm trying to do an astral projection as well.
Yeah. Okay. To answer your question, no, Mira is not one of my things that I've taught before, or not a tool that I have used, but it seems to be a tool that works with you. So, tools are very personal. Tools aren't so much a tool that everybody uses. Tools have to have metaphors that speak to an individual. And if a metaphor speaks to you, if it's something that you can get a connection with, maybe you walk up to that mirror and now the reflection in the mirror is somebody else that can walk away in that direction while you walk away in this direction. If that kind of metaphor, you relate to that, then it'll be a very effective tool to use. If that metaphor falls cold on you and it doesn't mean anything, then it's not going to work for you. So tools are metaphors. They're metaphors to get your mind to a place of openness and acceptance. That's what the tool basically does. Okay. And to bring into that, is Tom, or is that your imagination or what? It could be all of the above. It could be some part of me, because you can connect with my consciousness and I don't necessarily have to be aware of it. What I'm aware of is just a piece of my total consciousness. So I was not aware of connecting with you, but that's probably to be expected. Whether or not it was my consciousness or not, well, that's really hard to tell. There are parts of my consciousness that this memory that I have here, it's talking to you now, that I don't know about. It's not part of my memory, my piece of it. But consciousness is a multidimensional thing. So could be that the system's using that as a metaphor, that Tom's image is a metaphor of somebody who knows, somebody that you would trust, somebody that you would try to do what they told you. So they would use that image just to tell you something, because that would be a trusted image. So the system does that. The system will appear to you in whatever way it takes for it to make the communication to you, for you to actually get it and action on it. So it could be the system, could be me, could be part of your own, could be your imagination. But if your imagination brings that up, it's for the exact same reason as if the system brought it up, because it's a metaphor that means something to you. So you put that in those terms. So it could be all of those. And fact is, it doesn't really matter which it is. What matters is that you finally got what it is the message was, and it works good for you, that's the point. So however it worked out, the ball often bounces 2 or 3 times before it hits home. It's just the way it is. So you got one thing that led you to do this, which led you to do something else, which then put you someplace that really worked. So all of that was in a process of taking you to what works. It seems that if you go directly to what works with somebody, it usually doesn't work. You have to almost always take a few bounces first before their intellect is just watching to see what happens, as opposed to judging what's going on and the veracity of what happens. That's why you need so many bounces. It kind of lets you be more open and less prejudiced to the intellect's viewpoint. So I don't know, does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, I think it does. So kind of a warm-up session before the main event.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about what you said about the metaphor. I kind of figured it was a metaphor for something. I remembered actually another case where you were answering a Q&A and somebody brought up that they ran across a butterfly or something like that in their dream. And when they actually were asking to connect with you and like, okay, you said it was a metaphor more than likely. I thought, okay, this is probably a metaphor. It's probably not what I think it necessarily is, but it's something which has come up and seemed to have a lot greater significance. So I might as well just run with it, you know, instead of just trying to guess that it might, like, put my own spin on it. Instead, just see what happens if I engage with it.
Yes, exactly. That is the way you should proceed. See what happens if you engage with it. And you should have that attitude toward just about everything.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, Nambada, please go ahead.
Hello, Donna. Thank you. Hello, Tom.
Hello.
Okay, let me see. I've written down my question. My first question actually was, if you had to make a difficult decision, how would you approach it? But now I guess I know that you've answered it previously. And I've got another one, which is, so I can ask the LCS and it will give me at least a hint or a picture which shows me in which direction to go to make the right choice, right?
You can ask for hints of which way to go, but don't ask the LCS to make choices for you. That's not a good idea. You have free will. You have to make all your own choices. Now you can gather information, and you can gather information from the LCS that will help you make a better choice. But you have to make the choice and take responsibility for the choice. So the system will give you information, but it probably won't try to give you hints as to what you should do, because it doesn't want to take over your free will. It doesn't want to step in front of your own choice making. So you always have to make your own choices. Gather the information, then make your choice. And once you've made your choice, then be aware of what the consequences are of that choice and learn from it. But be positive about it. Don't make a half choice. Like, you know what I mean? Go into something, but you're only half committed to it. Now you can go into something that you say, well, I'm going to try this and see how it works out. That's fine. Mm-hmm. You don't have to jump in the deep end of the pool. You can always go to the shallow end and try that first. But in the end, you do have to make all your own choices. But it's okay to get information to help you make that choice. Yeah, but be aware that when you ask for information, you could be coloring that information with your own intent. Your own intent could be creating the information you want to hear. So you have to be careful not to trick yourself into thinking that you've gotten information from an independent source when it is really yourself.
Okay, thank you.
Saul, please go ahead.
Some of us will be transitioning over the next 10, 20, 30 years. And I'm wondering, Tom, whether besides lowering our entropy and increasing our love, decreasing our fears, whether there is something more specific we could do in preparation for our future experience packet.
Well, the main thing, of course, you want to do in preparation for your next experience packet is lower your entropy as much as possible. Grow up, raise your quality as much as possible. And you do that mostly through interaction with others and connecting. So keep growing, keep interacting. stay in the game, don't kind of retire to a reclusive position where you aren't so interactive anymore. Stay active in not only your own life, but stay connected to other people. That's important, because that's where most of our lessons come from, is our interaction with others. Some people have a tendency as they grow older to become more and more reclusive and kind of cut those connections and those interactions. But that's not such a good idea. Better to keep those interactions open and stay engaged. Although the older you get, the more likely you're to engage as a mentor of others rather than as the actor so much as the mentor. But in other times, that was the role of the elders. They became mentors. They stayed very active and very connected to what was happening, and it was their experience was valued. So I think that's a very good role, because it keeps you active, keeps you growing, and keeps you plugged in. Just unplugging and going off someplace is like unplugging and going off to die. That's not very helpful to anybody, including to yourself. You've got a wealth of knowledge and attitude and low entropy, high quality mind, and you need to share that with other people. Be helpful. So there's that. Other than that is have an understanding of reality and the big picture. If you just understand the big picture, that will just help so much, because that will get rid of fears. If you understand the big picture and what transition is and how it's a natural part, and it's not anything to be feared or to try to run away from or hide from or whatever, then that helps you. Then you can be relaxed and very positive as you get older and you approach that transition. See it as a positive thing, not as a terrible thing to be avoided at all costs. Not something that you really want to run to either. It's something that will happen when it's ready and when you're ready. And up until that time, you will continue to give as much as you can to the people whom you can help. So it's just that attitude. That's kind of a big picture attitude. And that should make your time going up to the transition as positive and as helpful as possible. So yeah, that's, we tend to isolate old people. We unfortunately, we don't revere our elders like we used to. But still, if the elders make themselves available, I think the people that need their help will come.
Thank you so much. I've already decided I'm never retiring.
Yeah, I'm in that same boat. Would you say 10, 20, 30 years? I'm 76. In about 3 months, I'll be 77. So yeah, we're at we're approaching the end game. And as you do that, it's actually I don't see it slowing down any, or retirement is just means you're taking on a new adventure. It doesn't mean that you're going to sit home and count your flowers in your garden and not do anything. That's not retirement. That's giving up. That's kind of running away and giving up, hiding your head in the sand and hoping all the bad stuff will go away, or at least be easy. I think you retire from one profession to another. The profession just doesn't pay as well as you get older and older. You start doing things just because you feel like it and you're helpful, rather than because you get any pay for it. The pay just gets less and less, but the fun just gets more and more.
Thank you.
Elizabeth, go ahead.
Thanks, Donna. Hello, Tom.
Hello.
I have a question sort of dealing with what Saul was talking about and definitely dealing with what Lior was talking about, and it came up during Lior's question, but I've thought about it before, and it's looking at ourselves as IUOCs. It feels like it might be easier to deal with life stresses and passings and things like that, attachments, if we could look at ourselves as, and others as our IUOCs are instead of our free will awareness unit. So do you have some ways that you might share how we can connect with ourselves and others as IUOCs instead of our little free will awareness unit?
Well, your free will awareness unit is just a piece of your IUOC. You just need to have a bigger picture, Elizabeth. You know, if you go into your daily life with this sense of being trapped in a little picture, then you kind of act like somebody who's trapped. If you have this big picture and you realize that you're here to learn and grow, and that doesn't mean always make the right choice. It just means make the best choice you can and then learn from it. And that life is always positive. It's always good. You know, life isn't a struggle. Life is actually fun. You know, that's a big picture viewpoint. The little picture viewpoint gets all wrapped up in everyday problems and issues, and things aren't the way you want them to be, and people aren't the way you want them to be, and you know, oh no, you know, now this, now that, and we get all wadded up in all of that negative stuff. And if we just step back and take that bigger picture, we'll look at it all and we'll say, you know, everything's just the way it needs to be. Everybody is right where they need to be to learn the lesson they need to learn. Now, they'll have to reach out and grab that lesson, you know, grab that opportunity and learn it. But if they don't, that's okay. They'll get another chance. They can learn it some other time. You know, but this is an opportunity. They're right where they need to be to learn what they need to learn. And then you realize that it's pretty much perfect, just exactly the way it is, even with all that dysfunction in it. You see, it's perfect because everybody has an opportunity right at their fingertips to change, to see a bigger picture, and to start to grow up and become love. Everybody has that opportunity right there. It's just whether or not they'll reach out and grab it. And they'll grab it as soon as they're ready. But until they're ready, well, they can't grab it. They don't know how to grab it yet. So we'll just keep on and we'll give them another opportunity tomorrow to grab that learning point and to grow up. So everything is just about perfect the way it is. And when you have that idea, then what's to not be happy about? You see, now you can have a smile and you can go through life with a very positive attitude, and you can be supportive, and you can be sympathetic and empathic and have compassion for people because you see them struggling and you see the lessons they need to learn, but they have to learn it in their own time, in their own way. Otherwise, they're not actually going to learn it. You know, you can't push them. So that's the attitude, you know, that you have. And if you keep that attitude, then you'll always be a cheerful, positive person. And you'll be maximum help to others because you're a maximum help to other people when you're positive. When you're in a Twitter and you're wrapped up in the minutia of the little picture of all the oh no's and how could this be, and I don't like this and I don't like that. When you're wrapped up in all of that, you make other people around you more wrapped up in that. You're part of that negativity game going on. And as such, you're part of the problem, not a part of the solution. Once you see that the world's pretty much perfect just the way it is, and you're happy, now you can be part of the solution for those people rather than be part of their problem with them. You can actually help pull them up and help them see bigger pictures just by being you and interacting with them. Not because of anything special you do to them or for them, but just by being you. That will help them. So yeah, that's kind of the way to be. That's what I was trying to talk to Sylvie and her sister about. You just need to be positive and be part of the solution, not get wrapped up in the you know, the soap opera that's going on in the little picture. When you get wrapped up into that soap opera in the little picture, you just become part of the problem. Everything is okay. Make your best choice, deal with the consequences and learn from them. And then you'll get to do it all over again, after a bit. But let's make as much as this one as we can.
So no cheat code to learn how to connect with the IOC and see all my other lives and all those other things. Okay, got it, Tom. That's okay.
No cheat code. You don't need the cheat code. The cheat code just gets in the way. It just gets your intellect tied into what you can do to make things better. And it's not about doing. It's about being. The way you make things better is by being better yourself. That's how you make things better, not by doing something like looking at the past lives and doing this and doing that. It's not a doing thing. It's a being thing.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
Kenny, please go ahead.
In the last video, you were talking, it was called New Ways to Explore Consciousness. And if I did not misunderstand, I think you were talking about a device that you are working on. Would you know when that would be available?
Yes, you're talking about the park.
I didn't know the park.
Yeah, you're talking probably about Tom's Park, would be my guess. That's going to be available hopefully within a month from now. Hopefully, I kind of set my schedule on it to be available in about 3 weeks. But what I've done is I've embellished, enlarged, and kind of recreated the park and made it a tool for people to use to help them grow up, I guess would be the thing to do. It's a tool that'll help you grow up. It's a tool that will help you be able to do paranormal things like go out of body. If you happen to be a person that has this intellect that sits on your shoulder, always judging and correcting you and telling you, gee, am I there yet? Is this real? Are you talking to the real thing, or are you just making this up? And, you have this intellect that's always kibitzing and getting in your way. Well, you can use this tool to get past that point. It'll help you get beyond the intellect's kibitzing. So it's a tool that will help you, connect with people, talk telepathically with individuals, gather data out of databases, go see your past lives if you want to do those kinds of things that kind of help you do all these paranormal things. And it's set in the form of a game.
Okay.
Of a VR game, because actually this physical universe that we're in is a VR game. And when we leave it and go out and out of body, we just in some other VR game. So all of our experiences are experiences inside of virtual realities.
Okay.
Matter of fact, if it is a reality that you can have experience in, then it's a virtual reality. Because the experience is defined by the rules, and the rules define the virtual reality. So that's what's coming. And I think it's going to be a fun thing. It should be a park that'll be a lot of fun to visit, but it's not a one-time kind of thing. It's something that it's a tool. It's actually a tool for you to use to help develop your intuitive side. And to help develop your intuition and your intellect to work together as a team, rather than each one struggling really against the other. But it's like any tool, you have to learn to use it well. It's not like a one-time thing. You don't sit down in front of the piano and play Bach. That stuff's pretty complex. You sit down and you make a lot of noise first, and before you ever start making music. And this tool is not quite that complex, but it's something that you'll need to do, many times, over and over again. And each time you'll get better at it. Each time you'll be a little slicker, a little smoother the way you progress and the way you shift from one state to the next and the things you're able to do. The first time is going to be awkward. There's a lot of things to learn and processes to learn. Here's how you go into such and such a room, and you've got these things that can happen in there, and you have to learn the processes. So the first couple of times are going to be a little awkward, like any tool. You know, you pick up a screwdriver for the first time, and it's hard to get a screw to go in without, you know, making a lot of mistakes. But after you've done it enough times, it's easy to do, and that's like this. So I think that's what you're referring to, and my internal schedule says we're ready to publish in about 3 weeks, but you know how internal schedules are. They almost never work. You almost always slip to the right, you know, on the schedule, and it takes out more time. But I'm hoping that it won't be long, you know, 3 weeks, you know, maybe 4, maybe a month, you know, but we'll have it out. And it's not, you know, it's not trivial. It's just the tour of the park in writing. There's going to be a couple of word files, one of which is like 27, 28 pages. You know, it's not necessarily lightweight. And there's going to be 2 audio files, audio files that you will be able to listen to. So one of them will be a guided meditation where I'll take you to the park and show you around a little bit and leave you there. So if people need that tool to help them get to the park in the first place, then they'll have a guided meditation to get there. And the other one is basically a description of what is the park, and how does it work, and what are the, you know, what's the rules, and really what's going on when we're doing the park, what's the purpose and point, and so on. That's kind of the introduction. So that's these two written documents. Basically, the two audios are just going to be versions of the 2 written, actually. But so that's what's coming, and it's not going to take too long. And you'll find it when it's ready at the MBT events at Keith and Donna's hangout. That's where you'll find it, and it'll be a digital download. So you'll just download it, and then because it's new, we'll probably have updates. You know, as we learn things and we get feedback, there'll be updates for a while, and the updates will all be free. You know, once you buy it once, you've got it for life. You'll just be able to keep updating it as we improve it. So that's what we're thinking about, and that's the tool. And hopefully, like I say, within a month or less, it should be available. It's all basically written now, except for the polish. You know, polishing always takes a lot of time. And I haven't done the audio files yet, but I'm going to do them this week. And then we have to put the package together, you know, to make some kind of overall package of what it looks like and how do you present it and the graphics. And we have an artist that's drawing the art, and he's actually going to take, you know, paintbrush in hand and paint a lot of the stuff by hand. So that takes a little time. You can't rush good art.
Yeah.
So we'll see, but that is what's coming. I think it'll be fun. I think everybody that can take the time to play with this tool, I think they'll find it in general to be a useful tool that'll help them progress and have a good time and actually make some friends while they're at it.
Great. Yeah, because it's a follow-up on the Explorer. I took the Explorer Advanced program. So it's a follow-up, more formatted. This is great. This is exciting. Yeah,
it's right. It's exactly what it is. It's that same park idea. But now there's people in this park and people you'll interact with again and again. So I suspect that some of you will make lifelong friends with the people that you meet in this park. You know, it's so yeah, it's got a lot more dimensionality to it than the little short thing that we did at the end of your session. So yes, that's what's coming.
Thank you, Tom. This is great.
You're welcome.
Please go ahead, Jay.
Hi, Donna. Hi, Keith. Hi, Tom. Everybody. Jean here. I'm so happy to be here. My question, Tom, is about the Free Will Awareness Unit. I realize that the Free Will Awareness Unit is a piece of your IUOC and receives data from the computer, from the LCS, a part of the LCS that acts as the computer. So when I'm looking at the horses and the fence and the pasture and the grass and trees, I'm getting data that that my free will awareness unit piece of consciousness is interpreting the data as these things. So my question is, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that I heard you say in Tennessee at retreat in 2020, somebody asked about thoughts and emotions and if they are in the avatar body or actually the conscious, and you think you said in the consciousness. So I've been confused about that ever since, in that when I meditate, whether eyes open or closed, I eventually, I get to this place where I am just my consciousness, or I'm aware that I'm just my consciousness to 100%. And I couldn't find a thought if I tried. Like, it's just not, they kind of go more and more in the background, and then I just can't even find one. So thoughts, I'm a person that's had a lot of racing thoughts, and it kind of developed an addiction to thoughts as a child because it was the only way I got out of my situation. So they kind of, and then eventually they don't serve you, and they can be destructive. So how can that be happening in the consciousness, the thoughts, if they can be so destructive? And I don't know, does this make any sense, my question?
Yeah, your consciousness is your whole thing. Your consciousness has fear. Your consciousness has, can be self-destructive. Your consciousness can be all those things. You as a consciousness, everything mental, everything emotional, all of that is part of your consciousness. That's the way you are. That doesn't exist in the avatar. The avatar is just, it's a picture painted so you can see the landscape, so you can see what's going on. It helps make this world real. But
so in that case, are the thoughts actually data being rendered to me based on my experience, or I'm not? No.
A lot of those thoughts that are just, if you think about thoughts that are dysfunctional, that just keep grinding around in your mind, that are negative or something like that. No, that's your own creation. You are consciousness, and you can create thoughts. You can actually create a virtual reality in your own mind, so that you can play in your own virtual reality, which is somewhat what we're doing when we're in the park. You're going to create your own virtual reality there. But so yes, those are you. That's part of you, part of the part of the fear, part of the ego and beliefs that are you are part of your consciousness. Now, when you meditate, you let go of all of that, and you just are at point consciousness. You're just aware that you're conscious, and that's all. That's point consciousness. And that's a lovely place to be, and it's a good launch pad for everything else. But that doesn't mean those other things aren't in there. It just means you've put them all aside. You're not processing them now.
Okay, then the last part of my question, which you said I can segue into, is I've been doing something new all day long to try and make my whole day a meditation. And it's been working way more than I thought it would, which is that whenever I have thoughts or I realize I'm thinking during the day, I say in my mind, I'm aware that I'm aware of my thoughts. And whenever I do that, I think, well, I can go back to what I was thinking as long as I'm aware of it, but I can't even remember what I was thinking when I do that. So, so then all throughout the day, I just keep doing this. And then sometimes several moments during the day, I just suddenly am in that place when I do formal sitting meditation, but I don't even know how I got there, because all I'm doing is continuously being aware that I'm aware of my thoughts, but somehow it's bringing me. And now my whole day truly is more and more like a meditation. So
exactly.
Does that, yeah, is that part of, like, if the thoughts are in consciousness, that's why that's working? I don't know, is that?
Yeah, it sounds good. It sounds like a very good practice that you're doing. You're making your whole life a meditation. As long as you are functional in that life, you know, that you mow the grass and feed the horses and feed yourself and, you know, do all the things that you have to do, and your life is a very functional one, then doing it as part of a meditation, life becomes a meditation. And that's a good place to be. So I'd say if you're experimenting with that, then continue your experiment. And as long as it works for you, do that. And then when you actually sit down to meditate, it's really not much different than just being.
Right,
You
that's my goal.
yeah.
That's because I haven't gone back to sitting formal right now. I'm going through a divorce. I don't, and it's pretty much the hardest time of my entire life. But I'm shockingly okay, even though I, you know, cry and everything. But in large part because besides amazing support, including from one of my best MBT friends, that I'm doing this, I'm aware that I'm aware of my thoughts, is minimizing the fear and the obsessiveness over this, or the, you know, why type of, you know, and you know, my husband and I are actually not just cordial, it's actually loving. I'm going to be moving out in a couple of weeks, but it's strange because there's so much love in the uncoupling, and I don't know what the future holds, but, you know, we just may need a break, and who knows, I just don't know. But I know that I was extremely fearful initially, but I had to do something where my whole day something could help me, you know what I mean, throughout the whole day. Yeah.
Sounds like you're doing the right thing, Jane. That's a good way to live. And I think it will probably be an eye opener and help you see bigger pictures as you, you know, as you progress through it. So that's good. You know, often it's like that. We get so wound up in our little picture, being chasing our fears and being chased by our fears, you know, struggling, that we kind of forget to be. We're just in this constant struggle, and we get lost in that struggle. And when we get lost in the struggle, we lose our joy. We lose the fun of life. We take everything, it becomes really serious, and everything becomes super important. And we just kind of slide down the drain of negativity. And when we can break out of that, like you sound like you're doing, then it's amazing how much we can change and just be a different person altogether. And of course, that changes all the people around us as well, because we're part of their dynamic, just like they're part of our dynamic. So it's not surprising to me that, you know, you and your husband decides you can't live together, and that kind of blasts you out of the rut that you've been in, to the point that you start becoming yourself again, and now you start liking each other again. You know, that sort of thing happens, you know, so just keep it up. It sounds like you're doing very well.
We're at the end, Tom, and I just would like to say thank you, everyone, for your generous support to MBT events and Lightning Strike books. And Tom, do you have something to wrap up this session with?
No, other than I would like to thank everybody too. We had a lot of very good questions. We dealt with things that I think a lot of people out there, and what I call the larger audience, you know, the people who will watch this, and they'll be in the thousands. And I think everything we talked about today was something that a whole lot of people are going to be able to relate to. So those are the best kinds of questions. This is a good group. So I appreciate you coming. I appreciate all the things that you've done for MBT. You know, this is the group that's been the supporters of MBT, and those of you who couldn't make it today too. There's more than just pictured here, but still, you folks are kind of the rock. You're the sustenance that keeps this going. So thanks all of you for just being who you are, and for being on this path of growth with us. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom, Keith, Donna, everyone. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you. Love everybody.
Thank
Feel the
you.
love.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Love you all.
Thanks, guys.
Soon.
Hope to see some of you next year in person.
Thank you, guys.
Right, so thank you.
So long. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Tom Campbell here. I and MBT Events hope you liked this video. We now have well over 1,000 hours of free video on this user-friendly, ad-free YouTube channel. Though these videos are free to our viewers, they represent many thousands of hours in production and editing, and many thousands of dollars invested in video and audio equipment, along with the required computers and software to store and process the raw video into finished products. So far, all of this content has been funded directly out of our own pockets. Be assured, we will always continue to do what we can. It's our life, our purpose, a labor of love that we will continue to pursue as best we can. However, those pockets are not as deep as they used to be. Thus, we are now seeking to augment our resources with support from our viewers. If you find something of significant value in our videos, please consider supporting their production through our newly created Patreon account or through a one-time donation. The links are in the description below. Thank you.